Well, once again, I find myself alone in a courtroom. Seemed like a good opportunity to make a video. There's been a lot I've seen on TV of late that I wanted to make a video about, but chose not to because I had other things going on that took priority. But I did want to make a video today about something that is very important. And it has to do with something that ties in the past couple years of my law school career with my prospective career as a lawyer and perhaps someday a politician. And, well, I'll just go ahead and say, for those of you who aren't in law school or who haven't been through law school, I think nearly every law school in the country has some form of advocacy competition in school. In this case, there are several. There's also teams that compete in interscholastic competitions. And basically, there's trial advocacy and there's appellate advocacy, which is pretty much just what it sounds like. Trial, advocacy, mock trial. Appellate advocacy is moot court, where you're arguing a case on appeal. And I did very well in moot court, both in the in-school competition and also the competition that my moot court team competed at in Washington, D.C. last year. There's some videos we made while we were up there. You can watch them elsewhere on YouTube. But the big picture is I'm not that great at trial advocacy, and I knew that going in. But it wasn't until recently that I really discovered why. And I say why, I mean specific reasons why I'm so much better at appellate advocacy than trial advocacy. And some people are good at both. And that's what this video is about. It's about the overlay between the two. When you're an appellate lawyer, in real life, you're making an argument to a panel of judges. And they're very smart people. They will listen to a legal technical argument and be able to understand it and process it and formulate a coherent opinion. When you're a trial lawyer, you're arguing, unless it's a bench trial, to a jury of 12 people or 6, depending on what the circumstances are. You're arguing a case to them, and you have to make it's almost like the simpler the better. Now, it still has to be based in truth and reality, otherwise you're on shaky ground. But it's a lot like when you see politicians giving speeches and they speak in terms of talking points and sound bites. That irritates the hell out of me. I've never liked that. As many campaigns as I've worked on, as closely as I follow politics, and as much as it interests me, even with politicians I like, I have to get past that whole thing they do, the platitudes and the pandering, really. But speaking especially, I'm talking about in terms of talking points and sound bites. And yet, that's what appeals to people. This whole time that I've been trying to get past talking points and sound bites and scoffing at them, rejecting them, detesting them. I should have been embracing them. I should have been studying them, the politicians who employ this tactic so carefully, and learning how to use it, because in a court of law, in a trial, it's very similar to what you have to do to win over a jury. Of course, the difference is in politics, if the truth isn't on your side, then it's not necessarily a disqualifier. The best case of that in modern life is President Barack Obama. When I hear President Obama speak, whether it's an interview or in a speech, I wouldn't think, if I didn't know his background, I wouldn't think that he had been a law professor. It surprises me that he's not a trial lawyer by trade, because he certainly sounds like one. And this ties in with something in my home state of Texas. There's a contentious Senate race here, and the Republican primary is really heating up. The establishment candidate, just to give you a quick preview, Lieutenant Governor David Dewhurst, was pretty much expected by most people to easily win the primary and then the general election. But he's been given quite a run for his money by our former state solicitor general, Ted Cruz, seen here being handsome. And I mean that both literally and figuratively, because Cruz, to the surprise of many, has been able to raise a boatload of cash, almost as much as Dewhurst. And as of the end of last quarter, he had more cash on hand than Dewhurst. Now, that's partially because Dewhurst has been blanketing the airwaves with ads like this one.
You may have heard about politician Ted Cruz, but you might not know much about trial lawyer Ted Cruz. Lawyer Ted Cruz is helping this Chinese company put this American manufacturer out of business.
I'd actually like to interrupt here and show you a clip from another Dewhurst ad attacking Cruz.
Lawyer Ted Cruz is still defending a Chinese company that stole blueprints from an American manufacturer. But now Cruz is lying about it.
I didn't argue the case. I'm not the lead lawyer on it.
But court records are clear. This is Ted Cruz's case. Cruz signed court documents as lead lawyer.
Okay, now here's a problem I have with this line of attack. First of all, for a lot of us who are, I should say, law students, future lawyers, and for people who are currently in the legal profession, attacking a lawyer because of the clients he's represented in the past is really a low blow, and very rarely is it fair game. But the thing I find especially disgusting about these ads is that Dewhurst is basically using the same tactics, talking points, sound bites, specious reasoning, to attack Ted Cruz that are so characteristic of manipulative trial lawyers. In other words, he's attacking Ted Cruz as a trial lawyer using the pretty much same tactics that trial lawyers use that basically create a bad reputation for trial lawyers. This is probably getting a little too... I could probably phrase that better. But that's exactly why I'm not a good trial advocate. Because you have to boil things down for people simple. You have to boil it down for them simply. If you can give people a coherent argument that is simple and easy to understand and agreeable, or it's based on principles that people agree with, beliefs that they already hold, or attitudes that are deeply rooted in them, then that is very often a winning argument, both in trial and in politics. Another thing I find ironic about this is that Ted Cruz may have done some trial work in the past, but he is primarily, or at least what he's made a name for himself here in Texas doing, is appellate advocacy. He was our state solicitor general. He argued cases before appellate courts, and including the U.S. Supreme Court, on behalf of the state of Texas. He argued on behalf of the state of Texas. I suppose that's one of the things that appeals to me about him, because I so enjoyed moot court, and he's an appellate lawyer, and well, I guess that's something that appeals to me about him. But to tie this all together, there are rare examples of politicians who are successful without having to speak in terms of talking points and sound bites, who actually don't fall into that, who make well thought out, well constructed, intelligent, and often hyper technical arguments and are successful. Your Paul Ryans, your Marco Rubios. I probably shouldn't list them, because then I'm going to leave somebody out and that person's going to get offended. No, they're not. They don't watch this. Anyway, if you go into court and you have a well-constructed, well-thought-out, sound, cogent argument, but it is technical and not easy for non-lawyers to process and understand, then you're likely to lose to someone who just comes in with a more simplistic, easy to understand argument that is based in, that has an agreeable foundation. Let me put it that way. At least that's what they've trained us to believe here at Baylor. I don't want to make it sound like I'm speaking as an experienced trial lawyer. I'm not. Still in school here. But it's interesting to me how similar it is in politics. This is often why good people don't end up getting elected, or they don't go very far in politics, but we wonder why there are so many bad people in Congress and in state and local levels of government. And really it's because, well, there are many reasons why. I think the key to a good politician, well, let me rephrase that, a successful politician, a successful campaigner, is someone who, to put it simply, is able to manipulate people without making them realize that they're being manipulated. Now, that last part seems kind of redundant, because once someone realizes that they're being manipulated, then it's hard to manipulate that person once they realize what you're trying to do. But I have to say, our president is very, very good at this. And this is the point where I would just play you a clip of him giving a campaign speech or revving up a crowd with empty words or some platitudes that are really just, if you're an intelligent person, then you just break down what he said, then it wouldn't hold water. But of course, his base isn't composed of intelligent people. But that would describe, you could find a clip like that from just about every speech he's given. It's so characteristic of him. And so this is not to say that you can't be an intelligent person and still succeed in politics. There are plenty of smart people in politics, but you have to be able to speak to people in ways that they can understand. You have to, just like in court, you have to put on a winning argument. And if you've got two people running against each other in a given election who are both very good at doing this, who are very good at speaking to people in terms that are easy to understand, simplistic, and have an agreeable foundation, but one person has the truth on their side, and one person has an argument that is based in reality, then that person should win if the other person's argument is based on lies or fantasies. I've talked in the past about all these left-wing myths that they're out there propagating. The president and his minions and Democrats are trying to feed into our public discourse. But what I was trying to get at a minute ago was, why is it that sometimes when you have two really good campaigners, two really good advocates going against each other, one person's argument is based in truth and reality and the other's isn't? Then why is it that in a campaign sometimes the person whose arguments aren't based in truth or reality wins? I think it's because in politics, and there are people more experienced than me that you can ask about this, but reality doesn't matter as much as people's perception of reality. So that's why if people feel like they're not getting a fair shake in America, if they feel like the tax code is tilted to benefit the rich, which is such bullshit, but in any event, then they're more likely to believe the BS being shoveled at them by these class warriors who really don't care about their well-being or their success in life. They just want to get into power. But I don't want to get up on a soapbox here. I'm trying to deal with something very serious. My point is this: when you vote, treat voting like jury duty. I think there's a lot of people out there who, when they're on a jury, they do try really hard to get it right. And they pay close attention, and even when they can't understand that, they do honestly try to do the right thing. But a lot of those people who have that attitude that you should, when you're called to be a juror, when you're called to serve on a jury, don't apply that same rigor, that same careful thought and analysis to voting, which is actually kind of scary, because your vote, even though it's just one vote, because there's millions of them cast, ends up you're electing people to positions of great power and import, whereas in a trial you're deciding the outcome of just one case. That's not to say that jurors don't have awesome power and responsibility, but in terms of the magnitude and the prospective effect of your decision. That's why I'm making this video, one of the reasons. I want to get this message out to all voters. Treat voting more like jury duty. If you've never served on a jury, then that may be kind of hard. But a lot of people just vote for one party. A lot of people vote straight ticket. I mean, I guess you can think of a rationalization of that for either party, but I'm hard-pressed to think of one. Treat voting like jury duty. Anyway, I may post something on my blog about this. I haven't decided yet. It'll depend on how much time I have. No, I'll have the same amount of time. It'll depend on how busy I am and some other things. But do check out my blog anyway. There it is. There's the URL. Go there. Type it into the address bar on your computer while I've got it up on the screen. Also, follow me on Twitter. I'm on Twitter now, @RightWingGenius. And I guess that's about it. Until next time, don't mess with the right-wing genius.